Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I wanted to put this is like 2:30 in the morning. I just left a conversation with a few friends online. I wanted to have this conversation while it's fresh in my mind, and I didn't necessarily want to wait for it until tomorrow. This idea of false flags. So the thing in Las Vegas took place, and I think it's up to 59 people who were murdered and gunned down by a maniac with a gun. Now, that maniac with a gun essentially extinguished the lives of just people at a country music festival listening to bad music. And yes, I know bad is perspective, but still, I don't like country music per se. But ultimately, that's not a crime where they should lose their lives for. And you kind of have to ask the question, what is the problem of your society where people, A, feel they're so terrified they need to get guns in the first place to the degree that they get guns? There's a one gun for every man, woman, and child in the United States. Not necessarily that every man, woman, and child has one. It's just that's how many guns that are estimated to be out there. So one, why are people so terrified where they need to load up on guns? And two, what are the pressures in your society that ends up creating the epidemic of gun violence that's in your society? Meaning, there's been a mass shooting. There have been essentially every day, for all intents and purposes, a mass shooting every day. And by mass shooting, I just mean at least 4 people being shot, with some being killed. That's an epidemic. Even if the thing in Las Vegas didn't take place, are you telling me that it's not a terrifying reality to have essentially a mass shooting every day? That doesn't happen in other Western nations. This is not a normal phenomenon. This is a phenomenon specific to the United States, at least in regards to developed nations. The point I want to get at, though, is on this idea of false flags. Yes, there are false flags that take place in the world. Does it mean that everything is a false flag? No, it does not. Where do you put your reality in that sense? What I mean is, if something happens where the information coming out is somewhat ambiguous, and for the moment, let's take the position that's somewhat of a flat fact that everything that's external to you is some level of ambiguity. I wasn't in Las Vegas. I didn't necessarily see with my own eyes this guy shoot 59 people. I didn't see it. I wasn't there. There's going to be a certain amount of ambiguity associated with it. I can't necessarily know for certain every little thing that took place, nor can I know if something ever took place in the first place. I have to take the word of the people who were there, the information that's coming out of that particular thing. Now, if the word coming out of it, in pretty much all corners, is there was a shooter, the shooter killed 59 people. Is it possible that it's a false flag? Yes, it's possible. Is it likely it's a false flag? There needs to be a little bit more evidence to say, yes, this is potentially a false flag. I don't see it. I don't see it. You have 325 million people in the country. Are you telling me that it's completely impossible, beyond any degree of percentage, that a maniac with a gun can behave irrational with that gun? And in behaving irrationally with that gun, take the lives of 59 people. Are you telling me that's impossible? Is it any degree of impossibility? Are you telling me that's impossible? I'm saying, of course it's not impossible in a country of 325 million. What is the percentage? 1%, 2%, whatever it is. Certainly there's a percentage of chance that somebody will behave in such a way. Certainly there's a chance that somebody would behave in such a way. It is immensely foreseeable, in fact. We have a gun culture. We have a gun culture. We celebrate it. We go to movies and watch these people murder large amounts of people, and we cheer those people on as heroes. We come home after eating our popcorn, drinking our Pepsi, as if what we just watched wasn't mass murder. We salute troops as they go out and murder people abroad, calling them heroes and patriotic for taking the duty of murdering civilians in other countries. And yes, I'm saying civilians because the majority of the people who we kill in those countries are civilians. We have a gun culture. We have a country that's militaristic to the hilt. Are you telling me that it's impossible that somebody would go and take a gun and murder 59 people? Are you telling me that's impossible? I'm just trying to make this point. People are going with this idea of a false flag. I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't know where they're pulling this from. I look at the news reports, and yes, there's always discrepancy in reporting for pretty much anything. You have something that's on the ground, that's taking place, that's in the spur of the moment. People are putting out news stories, and information is coming out, and the first thing people say, this looks like a false flag. Why does this look like a false flag? Why? Why? What's the smoking gun that people are using to make the determination that, yes, this was a false flag? That the person who went in and killed these 59 people, if a person did it at all, was somehow affiliated with some kind of military or CIA or something else. I just don't see it, man. Look, I get it. I totally get it. You're in a situation where the media continuously lies to you. Oftentimes, what they're peddling is fake news. Oftentimes, the stories that they put out has a certain curve and a certain slant that tries to goes and pushes a particular narrative. They're dishonest. Fair enough. I also get that what takes place with regards to politics often involves just people lying. They lie. Politicians lie. It's understood that politicians lie. Donald Trump lies every other time he opens his mouth. Hillary Clinton was famous for being dishonest. Famous for it. In part, that lost her the election. Your reality, the thing that's shaped around you, in many respects is monetized. Meaning what's profitable, what's not necessarily in your best interest, but in the best interest of the people giving you that information, is the thing that's shoved down your throat on a consistent basis. Fair enough. I get it. When Bernie Sanders went into the political contest, and you find out that they were behind the scenes cheating the guy, they were throwing people off the voting rolls, they were doctoring some of the information with regard to the polling results. So when the results, the hand count, didn't necessarily match what was coming out of the machines, they changed the hand count, making it match. In their heads, that wasn't rigging the election. That was rigging the election. You're essentially taking a vote tally, you're changing that vote tally to match something else that essentially you weren't trying to figure out what the reason for the discrepancy was. The honest choice would have been to go through and do all of the hand ballots and let the hand ballot vote be the vote tally. Not to mention Arizona. No, it wasn't Arizona. It was Utah, I believe. It was I believe it was Utah or Arizona, but one of them. Nevada. I'm sorry, it was Nevada. Nevada was horseshit as a primary. You can look at the video yourself. They openly cheated the guy. No consequence. It didn't matter. I'm just trying to make this point that I understand that this idea that your reality being shaped around you is oftentimes full of things that are not necessarily truthful, that are full of narratives that they try to get you to believe for particular ends. This idea when Donald Trump fires a weapon that's illegal and he goes into Syria and kills several people, and they're looking at this saying that this guy at this moment is presidential, even though we've downed him and talked shit about him the entire time he's been president. In this moment of militarism with this gun firing and going into another country illegal and killing somebody, at that moment he fired that missile. God damn it, he looked like a president. Where does one go for truth when your reality around you is often shaped and monetized for things that oftentimes does not entail truth? It's a slippery slope. The problem that I have with this is, where is your ground? Where is your footing? You take that step off and say nothing is true. Okay, nothing is true. Then what do you believe? Now, is the thing that you believe something that you're getting for yourself? If nothing is true, how do you find any, what are you holding on to? Where are you putting your hands at? Where are your walls? Where's your floor? Where's your ceiling? If nothing is true, if everything is a false flag, if everything is potentially a false flag, if there is no reality to anything, how do you persist? How do you persist? That's the fundamental problem I have with this idea that this thing is a false flag. At some point, you got to put your feet on the ground. Now, I don't understand what the point of a false flag would be in this capacity. I fundamentally miss it. If the goal is to get rid of guns, good. But you know that's not going to happen. Not going to happen at all. If the goal is to get people more terrified, I don't know how you can get them more terrified. When Obama was in office and they used this idea that Obama was going to take away people's guns, and the gun purchases skyrocketed. They never took away their guns. They didn't do anything to gun laws. They didn't do squat to gun laws. I don't understand what the reasoning would be to do this in this way. That's all. I'm just at a fundamental loss. If it's one of those things where we're going to try to get rid of guns, or we're going to try to push the public to be in a particular direction, I don't know what that direction would be. Under normal circumstances, when these things take place, nothing happens afterwards. Nothing. You know what my expectation is to happen after this? Nothing. Nothing at all. Your political apparatus is shot. At the current moment, it doesn't work. In order to get your political apparatus working, you're going to need a mass movement of people who want human rights. Fuck the party labels. This is one of those things of very specific interests from a wide group of people with that very specific interest. And this kind of intersectionality of saying, look, I understand that you may dislike this particular thing about me, but at the very least, let's agree that we need to do something about the way the political apparatus is being used. I understand skepticism. I am empathetic with this idea of the skepticism associated with it. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it. I don't see I don't see what there's to gain, particularly when there's nothing that's going to take place with regards to gun laws. You have a Republican president, Republican Supreme Court, House, Senate, and Supreme Court. Donald Trump is not going to look at this and say this was a terrorist attack. He's already come out and said something to the effect of, this is not the time to talk about politics. Meaning, let's not have the conversation about gun laws at this point. It's against our interests. That's why I don't buy it. That's why I don't buy it. If it turned out that this was an Arab man killing a lot of people, then yes, maybe I could lean on that side of, okay, they're trying to use this as some kind of reason to lock down the public for XYZ, etc., etc. That's not our case. That's not our scenario. And right now, they're trying to sweep this under the rug and move on to other things. And I strongly suspect that the public doesn't care. Yeah, I strongly suspect the public doesn't care. I think the public's apathetic to this stuff. It happens so often, I honestly think they're apathetic. Yes, it was a large number of people, but ultimately, when you have a large number of people being killed in that way, it just kind of goes over their heads. Maybe I'm more cynical on this. Let me know what you think. And yes, I am somewhat cynical in regards to what the American public looks at and cares about. I don't think they care. I don't know what the point would be. Unless you just had somebody who just wantonly wanted to murder a bunch of people who was affiliated with some kind of government apparatus or some kind of government agency, which I don't believe. 325 million people, and that's an estimate. As many guns as people, at the very least, one gun for every adult, man and woman. How many people in your country have mental illness? What's the percentage? Are you telling me that with a country awash in guns to that degree that those people wouldn't have access to guns at all? Let's say the person doesn't have a mental illness. Let's say the person has some kind of odd psychotic break. Let's say, for shits and giggles, he loses it over something, whatever that something is. Do you believe that each and every person who's going to get their hand on a gun in perpetuity for the duration of the time that that gun is built and made and sold is going to be a rational human being? Do you? Do you believe that there's any opportunity for an irrational human being to get their hand on a weapon, and that irrational human being doing something that is immensely irrational and disgusting with that weapon? Is there any chance at all? In a country of 325 million people, is there any percentage chance at all? What took place in Las Vegas is a sad and pathetic and immensely foreseeable action event based upon the way we've governed, and based on, look man, I hate to keep bringing this thing back to economics. To some degree, yeah, I do believe how we arrange ourselves as this kind of economic thing, whether you want to say the selling or proliferation of guns, or the squeeze that you put on the people in the public in our society. I don't know why this guy did it, but I don't necessarily believe that everybody who gets a gun is going to be rational, particularly when you have, like, again, a gun for every man and woman and child. Don't believe it's a false flag. I don't believe everything that takes place is some kind of governmental conspiracy. At some point, you have to put your hands on something. You have to put your feet on something. I may think that media creates narratives and makes shit up. Yes, I agree with that. You often hear me say democracy dies on the pages of the Washington Post in broad daylight. I definitely believe that. I also believe that this guy went in and killed 59 people. And no, I don't believe it was a false flag. So I just want to make this point, man. Everything doesn't necessarily have to be a false flag. Everything that happens doesn't necessarily have to be some kind of people moving the pawns. Some of these things are just irrational people behaving in poor, pathetic ways to very bad and ridiculous ends. I would say that's what we have here. Until I hear otherwise, until I see otherwise, until I see something that's a little bit more smoking gun that may point into this direction of there's something underlying this. I don't see it. I don't see it. And honestly, I don't necessarily understand what would be the reasoning for it. So, alright guys, if you enjoy the content, I'm sorry this one is morbid. Didn't mean for it to be morbid. It just kind of is what it is. A lot of people got murdered over some sad and pathetic system that you have in your country where you allow guns to be proliferated all throughout the United States. Donald Trump rolled back that measly policy that Obama put in dealing with, I think it was mentally handicapped or something, having access to guns. Think about that for the moment. Allowing easier access to people who are mentally handicapped. What would a rational human being, why would a rational human being do that? The economics oftentimes drives behavior in this country, particularly the politics, particularly around weapons and guns. It has nothing to do with what's right. It has nothing to do with what's best for the public. It has nothing to do with good goddamn sense. Politics. At least from the standpoint of gun laws and proliferation of guns. How your society is arranged is a different matter. The reasoning that this guy did for it, no clue. What I do know is 59 people are extinguished and are out of the game space. They've been knocked off the playing field. So, the question becomes, does your country do anything about the 59 people being knocked off the playing field senselessly at a country music concert in Las Vegas? Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, rate, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the work through Patreon. Thank you.